So I haven't named her. If you want to help me with that, I mean, we certainly can, but
that looks like that would, like, if you shouted into it, it would echo back. Like,
you know, and she's got to pull her hair back to access the clitoris there, but you know, it's pretty good. Like we talked about, I think she is 39, couple kids.
That's right. Ready to settle down now. Think? She's had her fun.
Yeah.
You're listening to the premier podcast for men who want to not only be better with women, but want to be better men in general. This is the Come On Man podcast. And here's your host, Paul Bauer.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another week of Come On Man. If you haven't done so already, please like, fave, subscribe, hit those notifications. If you are listening on your favorite audio platform of choice, please give us a 5-star review. It helps more than you know. I'm going to read another 5-star review. This one's from Hill Scott. He says, very entertaining. Not only do I learn a lot from each episode, but it's also just fun to be a fly on the wall to listen to some of these conversations. If you want a free shout out, go ahead and leave us a 5-star review on iTunes, and I will read it in an upcoming episode. Before I go any further, guys, check this out. I am recording this intro and outro on StreamYard, so I can do this now. Oh, I want to give a shout out to the Patreon, patreon.com/comeonmanpod. Right now, there's 5 tiers available, but coming in January, there's only going to be 3. And the prices are going to be tier 1, $10, tier 2, $50, and then tier 3 is $100. Now with tier 2, you will get unlimited text support from me. That also includes voice messages and video messages because it's all done over Telegram. If you're not familiar with Telegram, it's like texting, but on steroids. I love it. It's such a cool platform to use for this. And you can also do video calls and stuff like that with it as well. But you basically just get unlimited access to me over Telegram. And that's like, it's only $50 a month. You know, if you're having troubles on a dating app, you don't know what to say to a chick, just send me a screenshot of what you've said so far, man. I'll tell you what to say. And then you'll eventually pick it up. You'll pick up how to properly play mirror game and stuff like that with texting. And then tier 3, the premium tier, it's $100 a month. You'll get a video call with that every month, plus the unlimited texting. So it's the best value. And it's basically gives you one-on-one direct coaching with me, and we have follow-up calls once a month with that, but you get the unlimited texting with that. So right now, that's tier 5. And if you sign up now, you get 2 calls per month, but you have to lock in the annual option to get that. Let me hide this. Also want to say, sign up for the email list.comeonmanpod.com, and you'll get some free stickers. These are what the stickers essentially look like there, but just sign up. Basically, with the email list, I'm not spamming people. What I'm trying to do is basically make myself cancel proof, right? Last year my account on TikTok got banned, and it's taken me this long to try to rebuild. I still haven't gotten back to where I was last year on TikTok. So to try to avoid that going further, I'm trying to get people that are really into the show to sign up for the email list. And as a thank you for that, I'll mail you some free stickers free of charge. I will cover the postage. I just want you to get on the email list. And then that way, if I ever get deplatformed, I can send an email out, and you guys can, I can tell you where to follow me going forward. Man, I love StreamYard. This is awesome. All right, guys. My guest this week is an interesting lady. I met her on Twitter. She's the owner of Traditional Taboo. I believe it's in the Phoenix area. She hates being called a coach per se, and thinks of herself more as a guide. She goes by M, and she offers kink-friendly counseling for couples and individuals. And man, we had a really fun conversation. I think you guys were going to get a lot out of this. She's a pretty cool lady. And I'll bring you that conversation right after these words. Hey, you, I'm going to make this real quick. I know you hate ads. If you like this show, if you love this podcast, if you think more men should tune in, then you should consider joining my Patreon. You will be supporting the show, and I get to help more men level up their lives. There's now 5 tiers available, starting as low as $5 a month. It's like buying me a beer, and each tier gives you better bonuses. Visit patreon.com/comeonmanpod to sign up. That's patreon.com/comeonmanpod. One last time, that's patreon.com/comeonmanpod. Help me help more men level up and be better with women. All right, joining me this week is an interesting lady who I met on Twitter. She's the owner of Traditional Taboo.
Yes.
She hates being called a coach per se and thinks of herself more as a guide. She goes by M. What's going on, M?
How's it going? Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I apologize that we couldn't do this last week. This, for the guys listening, we were scheduled to do this last week and my computer totally crashed on me. So we had to push this back a week while I spent all day recovering my computer. It was like, I started in the morning fidgeting with it. That's when I reached out to you saying, hey, I don't know if we're going to be able to do this.
Yeah.
I was working on it until like 10 p.m. till I finally got it going again.
I wasn't sure if it was like a red pill thing where you want to keep me wanting more or something like that. I mean, I've been paying attention, so I thought you were like canceling on me last minute to just like hook me in or something.
Guys don't do that shit.
No? Oh.
Guys don't do the cancel last minute thing to try to do some kind of bullshit shit test. No.
I don't know. I was just saying. I'm not. Like you called me a lady, like you're like this lady here, like I feel old and I guess I kind of am. So I'm a little bit out of like the dating scene a bit.
Are you? Well, you're in a steady monogamous relationship, right?
Yeah, I'm married. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. How long you been married?
10 years.
Okay. Solid run. Yeah. How's that going?
It's phenomenal. But again, we live a DS lifestyle, so it's never dull.
Yeah. When you say
so the typical,
when you say DS, you're talking about like Dom sub.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's exciting all the time. It's always taking things to another level and keeping things interesting. And I can say I was never in a relationship longer than 2 years prior to him. So that was like, for me to make it this long is a big deal. I would have to be pretty damn entertained to do that, because I personally don't think that we're monogamous by nature. I think that if you make that choice, it's a choice that you have to make every day. So yeah.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Would you say that you were into the Dom sub thing before you met your husband, or was that something that he sort of taught you and you're like, oh shit, I actually kind of dig this, or was that?
No, like we grew in it together. So how it was, honestly, like when I see it's interesting because I didn't really have social media too much. I wasn't into it. But once I started getting it, especially the Twitter, and I started seeing like the red pill community, and I started kind of getting, because I feel like everybody was kind of friendly to me in that community, which is nice, but it was strange. I didn't know a lot of these things, like women having this masculine energy, and that was even something men noticed. Like I didn't know that. So I definitely was one of those like masculine women, like the ones that come in with a whole lot of energy. I'm not afraid of confrontation. I'm not afraid of like public speaking, or I'm pretty assertive. I've always had like careers in male dominated fields. I'm just comfortable with men. So I didn't have that like feminine energy. And so when I came into this with him, it took like a very dominant man to bring out that more feminine side of me. And he still works on that like to this day, because I don't identify with my feelings very well, and I need to have like help with that. But we grew in it together. It was just like we've always had crazy, wild, fun sex. And it just grew into like, let's make this a regular thing where, we do it 24/7 and we live a dynamic where, I do pretty much everything domestically and take care of every one of his needs whenever he needs it. And he takes care of me in, other ways. So.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
It's
a perfect arrangement.
Do you think that with books and movies like 50 Shades of Grey?
You're going to say it. I knew it.
Well, I'm just curious though. Do you think that it's become more of a popular idea to do this because of those movies and books?
Yeah, for sure. It definitely has. And the concept of it is not realistic. So it's fine if you want to bring in like the slap, tickle, blindfold stuff into your bedroom. Like I'm all about that. Obviously, I want people to have healthy, happy sex lives. But when you're doing it 24/7, it's not like what movies and books like that portray, because that's so sensationalized and it's largely romanticized, because in reality, the dom is not this sort of like sub-worshipping, like I'll do anything to earn your trust and your approval and your attention. It's the opposite. So it's more like, again, it's more akin to like the red pill aspect where the man is in charge of his life and he's the domain of his space. And we're kind of, as a woman, we're fortunate to be brought into that space and to earn his attention and his affection. And when a man values himself like that, it becomes very easy for a submissive woman to like fall into that feminine energy and just kind of relax in it. And you can't do that with a man that's not in charge of his space, and his domain. It's like you sense its weakness in him.
Yeah. Yeah. You mentioned that you were sort of more in your masculine and stuff like that.
Yeah, for sure.
Do you think a lot of that is our society sort of pushing that sort of narrative? Because I think there's a lot of men that are more feminine. They're being told like, embrace your feelings more and express yourself more. And so all these guys are like, okay, yeah, I mean, if that's what I got to do to get pussy. And then,
for sure.
So then all these, then these guys don't understand why their relationships are failing. It's like, well, you guys are not being taught to be the leaders. You're not being taught to be masculine. And and society does reinforce that. I totally agree with you. And that's like kind of the main idea of what I do with my clients and with the counseling is I try to get people to align back into their natural masculine and feminine energy. Now, of course, there's like those exceptions to the rule where you have like a man that just naturally has a lot of feminine energy. And I think in that case, then he would need a more masculine energy female, right? If that's how it goes for him, like if he's heterosexual. But in the extent of like me personally and the way I grew up in society, it was definitely this sort of, if I led with feminine energy, I would have been eaten alive. Like I would not have been able to survive in my environment because I had older brothers, very strong, dominant father, a whole street full of males that when I grew up, we played like every day outside. And then like I worked in law enforcement for a while. I've worked in legal fields. So for me, it was like male dominated everything. And if I didn't have a lot of masculine energy in those environments, I wouldn't have been accepted. I wouldn't have been able to feel like I belonged in each one of those separate environments. And then again, the idea that women, it's kind of made fun of if women are like, it's looked down upon if we're emotional or we're in this world nowadays. It's like, if you're emotional or you come across submissive, you're weak. And people tend to think that they can take advantage of you and you have nothing really to offer. So it's strange. I think society does kind of promote that with feminism in our culture and likewise with men too. It's like, I get what you're saying about the whole feelings thing, because obviously
while I went through school for counseling, it was very much like getting men to connect with their feelings. And it's not that men shouldn't, or even that they can't, like they're somehow dysfunctional and can't do it. That's not correct. Men are very feeling, beings, but they just relate to their feelings in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it is. So to have men try to relate in a feminine way is, it's dysfunctional to them. It doesn't make sense to them. It makes them feel like they're kind of wearing shoes that don't fit, is the best analogy that I can come up with. But yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was going to say that. Yeah, that's really well said. I once heard Rollo described as, or he said men don't emote the same way women emote, but we're expected to emote the same way because of egalitarianism. And
and it's true. It doesn't work like that. Like it literally on every process, biologically, neurologically, physiologically, we're not the same. And to encourage those, like there's one kind of set way for emotions to be communicated, or there's one kind of set way to identify with emotions, is like asinine in my opinion. And it's alienating so many men. And in the same vein, like it's also ruining couples that are going like to couples therapy thinking that they're going to achieve something there. But their dynamic and their polarity is just completely, for I'm not super graceful with my words, but for lack of better words, it's fucked up. And you can't, if that kind of energy is fucked up, the couple will not work. It doesn't matter how much you talk through everything. It's dead in the water.
Yeah, you need polarity in some fashion for it to really work out long term. Let me ask you this. So you said you have a law enforcement background. Why kink? What made you want to coach people on this particular subject matter?
So when I was in school, from the time I did my, like the prerequisite studies, my bachelor's and then my master's degree, like for a large chunk of time in there, I worked in law enforcement, but I wasn't a police officer. I did like warrant execution and like records. And then I was the chief's secretary for a bit. So it was a very interesting position. And the two worlds are not all that different. If you think about it, you're dealing with men that, and not to say that cops are like power tripping, some are for sure. But it definitely plays to the alpha male, stereotype and that kind of trope with leadership and, justice and these concepts that are very masculine concepts. So it's not that different to think that working in law enforcement with these strong males would be all too much of a transition to go to understanding dominant males, because it's a pretty easy switch. But I did that as just a job to help support myself while I was going through school. Ultimately, I knew I always wanted to be in counseling.
Okay. But what made you want to get into specific like couples, taboo, kink?
Yeah, well, they're the most interesting. They're the most interesting group of people. It's I like the shadow side of people's psyches. So where I think some people fear it and they don't want to hear that, and they don't like feeling uncomfortable when they sit with it for a little bit. Like if somebody says they're into something that that particular person feels is taboo, right? They don't want to sit with it. So if you're going to a counselor that doesn't get that aspect of the lifestyle, and let's say it's a DS relationship and they're going to counseling and they talk to the therapist, and the therapist is like, so tell me a little about your relationship. And then they go into the fact that she likes breath play. So she likes to be, choked out pretty heavily during sex or whatever. It's like suddenly your typical therapist is like, your red flags are coming up, right? Like you're looking for signs of abuse, signs of where the consent might not be fully there. And then you'd have to be looking into reporting that, situation. And I just think how sad that is, because people have, you know, in my opinion, very primal desires sexually. And our society really like squashes them down. And so I think it's natural for them to express it in a dynamic that's really comfortable with them and they feel safe in. And it's sad that the rest of the world, particularly Western culture, you know, but also some other cultures just don't embrace that. And it's kind of like, no, you have to do things just a certain set way, and it's predictable and boring, and like people don't explore that darker side of their psyche. Mm-hmm. And that's where it's like, that's where honestly I see the best sides of people when I deal with them, is when they start kind of like opening up to me and telling me these darker things or these parts of their psyche that they think are dark. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, no, that makes you more interesting, right? Mm-hmm. It's like, who wants all the boring, typical shit? Like, I don't.
Yeah. Yeah. Who wants boring vanilla sex? That's boring.
Who wants that? You know, yeah. Like I don't get, I know so many couples that are just so bored. Mm-hmm. But both like, you know, husband, wife, or male, female, whatever, boyfriend, girlfriend, they don't communicate that they're bored because they're too afraid of hurting each other's feelings. Mm-hmm. And so they never get anywhere, and their relationship just, you know, turns stale or stagnant, or they hit a glass ceiling. And then it's like all that potential was just behind it. Mm-hmm. But everybody was too afraid of confrontation and tiptoeing around things. And that's why I like kink, because it pushes the boundaries, like to aspects of things that people are like, I didn't even know I would have liked that. Mm-hmm. You know, for me personally, kink opened up so many doors that I was like, I had no idea I would have liked that.
Interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, one thing that I found on my personal journey was that, I was always afraid, like in the bedroom, I was always, I sort of wanted, like, I had this idea of consent, right? Like, oh, I really want to know that, this is what she likes. You know, this is, you know, I was basically going out of my way to make sure that I'm not doing anything too taboo, because
yeah.
Right. And then I found out, you know, after like learning about sexual dynamics more, learning about women's attraction more, that a lot of a good majority of women really do respond to a dominant guy that sort of goes for what he wants. And when I started just going for what I wanted in the bedroom and just sort of, you know, not being like, you know, abusive or anything, but just putting her in the position I want, telling her to do stuff, like being like, talk dirty to her and stuff. And when I started doing that, like, I just really found out that women are super responsive to that, like pulling hair and stuff, you know, like it's stuff that I would have never done before because I thought it was bad. It was taboo, and women don't like that. It is bullshit. Women totally like that.
Yeah. The thing is society like teaches this idea, and it's really unfortunate for both men and women, but for men, it's harder, right? Because you had the Me Too movement, and you had this sort of fear that was perpetuated throughout the media, and this kind of narrative that you have to get consent in a way that is like almost like recorded, a signed contract, you know, like you want to, you know, dot your I's and cross your T's, because God forbid, like God forbid she feels after the fact that she was violated because, you know, you didn't call her or whatnot. And then she's reporting you, and then you lose your job. And I mean, it was that shit's out of control.
You know what though? So, like I've never experienced anything like that. And there's a lot of guys that I think have an unhealthy fear of that happening, when I don't think it happens as much as people think. It's just that the media focuses on it, you know?
Yeah, I would agree with you on that. Like, I was going to comment on that when it comes to women, right? It's almost like society says women want this thing. And so if you think of a collective group of women taking in that message also, as they're being raised in society and kind of that sort of nature nurture thing. So here we're talking about nurture, implanting those messages. Well, it's only natural that deep down we want the opposite, but we sort of perform to meet society's standards and society's acceptance of us, and also other women's acceptance of us as women, because that's a very harsh group there, so if you're not meeting the standards of the other women, you will get just torn to shreds. So it's almost like women act like they want that, but when it's behind closed doors and they feel safe and comfortable and they're making a consented decision to move forward, I think most women, the vast majority, want to be dominated in the bedroom. It's natural for us to want it, I think. And I think you're absolutely right that it's more men fear it than necessary, because there's that line, right? Like every man knows, at least not every man, but a lot of men have a decent enough awareness when he's crossing over into being a total creep, right? It doesn't feel right. Like you're pushing the issue too much. You're reading social cues and she's shutting down and that sort of thing. Like, just be aware of who you're with, what kind of messages you're receiving, be present in the situation, which is, I think, what a lot of people struggle with. And you really don't have too much to worry about, in my experience. Like,
oh yeah, I agree 100%. As long as you understand, the way I like to look at like dating and talking to women is, men really should walk through open doors. They should be able to gauge a woman's interest level and really spend time with the women that are giving them high levels of interest, and just don't waste your time with women that aren't. And I think the guys that come off as creeps, they just don't know when to quit with women that aren't interested,
Yeah. And it's that, as well as the fact that like people have a very hard time in like how tech crazy we all are, right? Checking into the moment when you're on a date with somebody, when you're just, maybe you're in dating, you've been dating for a while or whatever, but you're at home, you're hanging out, and you're totally checked out from each other because you're mutually on your phones. Everybody's kind of missing these bids for attention and affection. She's missing his, he's missing hers. And it's just a matter of checking into each other and being present in those moments. And people just struggle so bad with that. Just turning it off and checking in, because the attention deficit issues are like real out there,
Oh yeah. Yeah. Big time. And especially if you have a job, like my day job, I work in IT. So am sort of like tethered to my phone at all times, because I have to check for alerts, to make sure like websites aren't crashing, and those can happen at any time, which is super, a super cock block when it's like 10 o'clock at night and getting my romanticism on, and all of a sudden a server crashes. Is like, oh
yeah, right.
Sorry, babe, I gotta go and deal with this server that's down. So hot. So that that's that kind of thing's unfortunate, but I think like a lot of people don't have jobs like that. They have jobs that they can clock out at 5 p.m. and spend time with their partner, but they just don't do that because they're addicted to social media, stuff like that.
And it's not like you can use it, not you, but people can use that excuse where it's like, oh, it's work and it's this, and certain people, absolutely, your position, some medical professionals, stuff like that, can use that kind of excuse. But in reality, most often it's just people being lazy. And for women, especially, because a lot of men are comfortable being in the same space with company without needing to talk, without really needing to engage, without needing to have that kind of shared, I should say, like a verbal communication, that's sort of connecting in that way. Men are good sitting in the same room if they have like their woman next to them, or like her hand on his leg, whatever. Maybe he's like leaned into her, she into him, and that's good enough, right?
Mm-hmm.
But for women, we tend to need a little bit more than that. And effort and attention is an aphrodisiac to us. So to be robbed of that and then have a man then try to sexually connect and expect it to happen like that is it's a very naive idea, right?
Yeah.
Because women are so cerebral when it comes to our sexuality that we need the attention and we need to feel like he's checked in us.
Yeah.
And I think that's where a lot of, people are going wrong.
You know what's really helped me with that? Because that was something I struggled with a lot.
Most men do. Yeah.
Oh yeah. But I have cats, and I always like to talk about how women are like cats a lot. But one thing I noticed is my female cat, she isn't very affectionate, but when she is, it's very few and far between, but she'll come up and she'll sort of slink onto my lap. And I'm usually trying to do something like post a video on Twitter or whatever. And so what I've started practicing is when she starts doing that, to put my phone down and just pay attention to her. And just be like, oh, you just really want my attention right now. And I started doing that and getting the habit of doing that with my cat, so that when my girlfriend does the same thing, my girlfriend, nurse chick, she's even more needy than my cat. She love you, babe. She comes up and wants my attention all the time.
She looks phenomenal, by the way. Just nurse chick, like, great job on all your fitness stuff. Like, you look phenomenal. So.
Oh, she listens to it. She listens.
That's a lot of work. That's a lot of effort and a lot of work. And that's just like amazing. So.
Oh yeah. She's hardcore with it. Her diet, especially leading up to a competition, is insane. She eats
insane. Yeah.
She eats these like fish flakes, and she has to eat them like 5 times a day. And I say fish flakes, it's like little flakes of meat, It's
like pieces of cod. I did bikini for a couple years when I was younger.
Yeah.
And I hated it. So I have a lot of respect for her. Like, I absolutely hated it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. She gets really into it though. She really she doesn't necessarily enjoy the eating part, but she likes the results. And then she also likes the epic cheat meal at the end of, which is just a nice reward. But yeah, so she will come up. She likes to be in my presence a lot. And so I like to make sure that I'm aware of it. That's a real key thing for guys, is just awareness. And I realize, like, oh crap, I'm not paying attention to her right now. So I got to put my phone down and really just be in the moment. And that's hard for me to do, but I try to be conscious of it and actually try to do it.
I actually think that that's a really creative idea, that you applied it with your cat first. Like, I admire that. I mean, that's initiative right there, like you applied it with your pussy to get more pussy.
Hey, pussy attracts pussy. That's what they say.
I think it's phenomenal. No, I really do think that, like, women are very similar to cats in that way, because once we get that, like, that affection, right, we'll go away for a little bit and we're good. And we're kind of sitting at like a homeostasis as far as our emotions and our needs, and we're feeling all good and taken care of and warm and fuzzy. And then, something will happen and they'll dip down, and then we'll come slinking back for that, like, reassurance. And then, you pet us a little bit and then we go off and we feel good. Like, if I think a lot of men would simplify their lives and solve a lot of their problems in their relationships and dating if they just realized that those little momentary check-ins are huge. And if you miss one, she'll pull away and she'll resent you a little bit, and she'll come back. And if you miss a second one, then that, amplifies, and you keep missing those opportunities. And now she comes at you with that full force of being pissed off and neglected, which is really just anxiety. And a fear of rejection. And so she comes to him with that, and then he's like, what the fuck's your problem? Right. So it's like this big blow up thing.
Yeah.
But if you just checked in those little moments, she would have stayed good. And yeah, it's a lot of maintenance, like 100%. It's a lot of drawing a man's attention.
It really isn't. Like I ever since I started practicing that and just being aware of it and noticing, sort of, watching what Nurse Chick does, it's just like second nature now. I sort of recognize it and I actually enjoy it. And I look at it like, I sort of look at the challenge like this is I always say it's a good problem to have, but it's not a problem at all. It's almost effortless at this point.
Well, and the thing is every time you do that, you're like giving her that validation, not saying she absolutely needs that validation from you, but obviously if you're in a couple, that's important, right? So she's getting that from you. She feels safe, secure, paid attention to, her needs are met, then she becomes something better sexually. It's like, though all of those things for women are connected, all of them. So what she's lacking in your attention, your affection or whatever from, in these scenarios, not you, when I say you, I have a bad habit of that, but
I know what you're saying.
What she's missing there, she applies sexually, right?
Yeah.
So she holds back sexually because she didn't get what she needed over here. And I think that there's a lot of men that don't make that connection. And then they wonder why their, significant other's kind of like a frigid, bitch, or she doesn't open up or whatever. And it's usually because she didn't feel safe in the first place.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Switching gears here. We talked about it offline, but what's up with the crocheted dick in the vagina in the background?
So I haven't named her. If you want to help me with that, I mean, we certainly can, but
that looks like that would, like, if you shouted into it, it would echo back. Like,
and she's got to pull her hair back to access the clitoris there, but it's pretty good. Like we talked about, I think she is 39, couple kids.
That's right. Ready to settle
What
down
do you
now.
think?
She's had her fun. Yeah.
And I don't know, I guess Johnson or something. I mean, do you remember like the big Johnsons back in the day, the t-shirts? You don't remember those?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, the big Johnson t-shirts. Yeah.
Yeah, like this kind of reminds me of that. But yeah, so here we have him with like a double, I don't know, he's like circumcised on the top and the bottom. Not sure.
Yeah, that's kind of odd.
So, yeah.
That's for when you're working with couples and stuff, you want to show them how things work.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Plus it's just fun, it's just fun. And you'd be surprised at how many people struggle to understand their own anatomy.
Oh, sure.
So,
yeah.
It's pretty interesting, plus they're good conversation starters, bright pink vulva over there. Like, people are going to notice that. So
yeah, it's pretty striking. Let me ask you, what kind of people come to you for help?
Oh, all range. So I definitely market myself as a kink friendly counselor, right? But I get a lot of individuals too that just want to connect better with their masculine or feminine energy. So because I lean so male in my, obviously my Twitter and everything, I'm big on men's health. I'm big on masculinity. I think men are incredible. And I genuinely care about their wellness in this world, especially how just horrible it is to men that are truly have those alpha characteristics. And they're just being vilified left and right and misunderstood. And that's why we have a lot of brokenness in our society. I mean, a society with weak men is just, it's kind of a hopeless situation. So I get a lot of men, like male clients too, because it's hard to find a therapist that has a masculine approach, because the way it's set up, and that's why I don't practice under a license, because the way it's set up, if you work under your license, there's the ethical constraints that you have to work within. And one of them is that obviously you can't communicate your biases. If you do, and somebody gets pissed off about that, it is very easy to lose your license. And that's a lot of work to put in to lose your license because, somebody's wife was upset that you leaned masculine, right?
Right.
So Same thing when it comes to like kink and working with couples that do some things that might border on what the average person might see as abusive. It's just kind of like a wide range of people. And I also have like a specific section that's dedicated to first responders in the military. I deal with a lot of that as well, because obviously I worked in law enforcement. So I was on like a committee for officer involved shootings. And so I have a lot of background in that too.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah. Your website talks about not like basically going to a therapist versus going to a coach.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And the ethical dilemmas there. Have you, and you said that you never actually finished your master's degree. Is that
so? No, I finished my master's degree, but the part where I went to school, right, it combines your certification.
Okay.
So it combines licensure with your program. So I didn't finish all my clinical hours. So my hours out practicing in the field, I didn't finish all of those because I knew that I wasn't going to be able to do it and not lose my license. Like, I know that sounds just bold, but it's true. Like, I am very blunt. And I do think the world is in a bad state when it comes to how we treat men. And there's no way I'm going to be able to sit in front of a couple that I see where that issue could be for him between, the polarity, like we talked about. Mm-hmm. And I can't talk about that because she might get offended and then I get reported. It's a mess. You're not allowed to turn anybody down either. So if you get somebody that comes to you, and let's say I get a blue-haired feminist that comes to me and is very like man bashing, anti-male, like conservative beliefs and whatever. And I'm not saying like anything political there. I'm just saying like, let's say she leans very far left.
Yeah.
I would struggle with her, right? Like, to think we don't, and when I say we, meaning like therapists, don't like put that bias into what we're doing. I don't see how that's possible. Mm-hmm. That it somehow clouds that space, right? Like it would have to.
Oh yeah.
So you're not allowed to say, hey, I don't think we're a good fit. You can't do that because it's basically like you're leading with your biases. You're saying, I don't think we're going to work well together, so I don't want to work with you. You can't do that. The only time you can do it is if that person, let's say, struggles with like addiction and I don't have certifications that are in line with addiction. So it's not part of my like training. Mm-hmm. That's the only time you can. So I'm not comfortable with that. There's no way.
You can also do it if their insurance won't cover them and they can afford it too, right?
Yeah.
Okay. It's funny how that works.
Yeah.
So yeah, that when I read that on your site though, you follow a lot of the guys in the men's space. Are you familiar with Ryan Christensen, Hypnosis for Men?
I saw a tweet. I think maybe you shared it. It was a while back, and I did look at his Twitter. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So he's a hypnotist. And it's almost a similar situation where I think he works in Texas, and he can't call it hypnotherapy because in order to be a hypnotherapist, you also have to have like a psychology degree and have a license and stuff like that. But he could be a hypnotist. That's fine.
Yeah. Isn't that stupid? Right?
It's semantics at that point.
It's so stupid because in reality, he's trained to do all of that the same as, somebody, or largely the same as somebody who can call themselves that. And it's like, but the title makes all the difference. Like it's all this red tape bullshit, And it's the same thing with me when I decided to go off on my own so that I could do things the way I wanted to. It was like I had to be careful in my wording, which is why I can't call what I do therapy.
Right.
Even though. Can
you call it counseling though? Is there, I mean,
yes.
Okay. Yeah, you can call it counseling.
Call it counseling, but I cannot call it therapy because then you're kind of getting in that kind of gray area where somebody could misconstrue that you are, practicing as a licensed therapist. Yeah. Even though all of my forums go over that, and my website obviously is very clear that I don't practice under a license. So, but yeah, it's weird. It's a lot of bullshit.
I know it's really funny to me. I think it's kind of like I look at dating and relationship coaches, but they can't be like marriage counselors. It's not, they can't use that same title, but they're usually, I think, oftentimes more effective too. Sometimes.
I totally agree with you. It's weird. I've seen people in like the professional space, so they're licensed, that I'm like, you don't have a freaking clue with the information that you're putting out there. And I get that might appeal to some people, but then I've seen some coaches where I'm like, wow, right? Like, but people, because we're taught that everything that you learn in school, like that's where all of it is. And like, that's where all the knowledge is. So much of when it comes to helping people is really experience with watching, paying a lot of attention, studying patterns, and asking a lot of questions and genuinely caring, right? Like I could go to school for as long as, I could get a doctorate, but in the end, where I learned the most would have been talking to all of those officers that were in officer-involved shootings, or, talking to a kink couple after kink couple that struggle with polarity, right? Because those are the things you don't learn about in school.
Right.
So it's really weird. I agree with you. I think people shouldn't be so quick to rule out coaches because there could be value there. You just have to know what you're looking for and do your research,
Yeah. You mentioned polarity several times. Are there any good resources that you would recommend for people, like books or whatever, to learn more about polarity? Because the first time I ever heard about it was I read a book called How to Be a 3% Man by Corey Wayne, and he talked a lot about it. And he got a lot of that from David Data's work.
Wow. Yeah, great. Yeah.
The Way of the Superior
Man. I like his stuff. Yeah. I like his stuff a lot.
Great book. Are there any others you would recommend?
Honestly, polarity is such a weird thing. And when it comes to, I guess it would depend on whether, because there is a spiritual kind of polarity, right? Like the kind of ethereal, like essence of masculine and feminine energy. And then you have like biological, evolutionary psychology differences, right? And really, like, I know it sounds a little trite to say this, but I think if you really study a lot of just the evolutionary differences between men and women and like mating styles and like these things that are very primal, very animalistic, and I get that. But there is so much truth to be found in there, Oh yeah. But honestly, I really like The Art of Seduction by Robert Greene. Oh my gosh, phenomenal. Like, I really feel if there is one book that gets overlooked for polarity, it is that book. Because not only does he describes how women can be in their feminine and all of that and what kind of man that tends to attract, but he also talks about like the dandy, which is like a man that is very connected to his femininity. So there's like he kind of blends it really well. So I think that is a overlooked book, and there is a lot of valuable information in that by him. I think he's a fantastic author.
Oh yeah. I read the 48 Laws of Power.
Yeah, that's a popular one.
I couldn't stop. I was really drawn into that book. I added that to my multiple read list. And so Art of Seduction's been on my reading list for a while, but my reading list is absurdly long. So
it's phenomenal. And I think men really enjoy him because he throws in so much history in it too, which is just kind of, that men enjoy that kind of thing. So I feel like he appeals to men in a lot of regards that way. But The Art of Seduction is just so well written. And it explores how a man and a woman can literally kind of shift polarity to appeal to each different situation. So for like a dating person, it would be like my number one book that I would recommend to read.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Have you read The Evolution of Desire by David Buss?
No.
Okay. That's the first book that I read that really gets into evolutionary psychology.
Yeah, I love it. I'm going to have to read that because that is one of my favorite like fields, I love that.
Yeah, I learned about that book from Paul Benjamin from Apex Mindset. He told me about that book, and so I went ahead and read that. That's a fantastic book for sure. They don't really talk about polarity per se, but that's
what I mean. They don't use the word, right? But it's like that's what's discussed. That's that to me. That's like the essence of polarity, because that's evolutionary, like mating rituals, sex differences. Like that's where polarity stems from. We just, we add all this fancy, cerebral stuff to it, as we like to elevate ourselves as humans. But in reality, we're all animals, in my opinion. It boils down to the same things.
Yeah. You and me, baby, ain't nothing but mammals.
You're dating yourself,
I know. So, I mean, this is kind of a very broad question, but I find like when I'm talking with other guys and we're talking about relationships and dating and stuff like that, there's always some common denominators that guys are running into, right? So I would ask, like, what's one of the biggest struggles your female clients experience?
Indecisiveness from men.
Okay.
Number one, the, like you were saying, kind of like this lack of initiative, like a lack of wanting to take the lead, being afraid. So I think what I try to explain to my female clients is kind of picture that he's innocently trying to appease you, right? Because a lot of men struggled with these dominating, overbearing mothers. And at least that's a theme I see among my male clients, is just like very abusive, toxic mothers.
We're also taught happy wife, happy life, like our entire life.
Yeah, right. That's again another one of those kind of cliches pushed around through society. So I think it comes from this really genuine place in men, but women vilify it and can't stand it, because to us, it's just this idea that, well, you want us to do it all for you. So it's very hard for us to simultaneously make decisions or to lead the relationship and relax and respect him. So those two things don't go very well together. So well-intentioned men are getting very, like they're being vilified in their relationships, because the women are like, what the hell? Like, make decisions. You're the man, you're the one that's supposed to be leading the relationship. But this kind of idea that he's having to please, and he's worried about like her emotions and she might freak out and all of this fear, it really comes across as weakness to women. And so I would say that's the number one thing. Yeah. It's just men are very afraid of upsetting women and having like the emotional storm of a woman, which I did a tweet about this the other day. It's like yesterday, I think. You just have to take it very casually. As a man, you have to listen and just be like, okay, let her blow off steam or whatever. Don't take it personally, and make, comfort her, make kind of light of the situation, depending on if she's somebody who diffuses with humor and whatever. And you'll go so much further than tiptoeing around her. Like, it's like the quickest way to dry vagina.
The whole idea of being decisive, I learned from a book called Atomic Attraction, and this he tells a case study of basically how to handle the situation where couples get into the argument about where do you want to eat, honey, that whole cliche. And he says in the book, he's like, just pick a place, right? He's like, you're the man, just say, honey, get your jacket, we're going out for steak tonight. And when I started doing that, I noticed a huge difference in my relationship, just because like I noticed that every gal that I dated and I did that with, I never got any flack for it. I never got any pushback. A lot of guys are afraid, like, well, if I pick a place, she's not going to like it. Bullshit, dude. She's not going to care. She just wants you to be the man and lead. And
even if she didn't like it, that's an opportunity to like play with that dynamic, right? This is why I like kink. This is why I like DS, because DS takes a lot of that bullshit out. So as a man, you're leading your relationship. You set up parameters and rules for how, she interacts with you, and your expectations for her, right? And although a lot of women hear that and go like, "Ugh, I don't want to have rules," right? You can do it lightly and playfully, and you can do it in an extreme way. It depends on the kind of woman you're dealing with, right? But you can set that up in a situation where like she's the one who ultimately decides the restaurant, because you don't want to deal with it, right? So that's a parameter. Or maybe as your parameter, as the dom in the relationship, you decide everywhere you guys go, and she can't object. And if she objects, then she gets a spanking, right? So it's this fun, like you can make it so much fun. But I think, like you're saying, these men are like afraid. Oh, what if she doesn't want to go there? Well, too bad. I want to go there.
Yeah.
Like say something like, I get it. Maybe you don't want steak tonight. They have chicken. No, we're going there because I want to go there.
Yeah. What I do in that circumstance is I say, well, do you have a better suggestion? And if they go, well, I don't know. I go, well, I'm going to this place. You're welcome to join me.
Yeah.
And that'll end it right there. But I've never gotten to that level. It's usually, yeah, that sounds good. And it's,
I think naturally we want to please, I think if you're dating, and you take the lead as a man and you suggest a restaurant and you're getting a lot of pushback from her, and then you do like what you said, that's a great suggestion. And she's still giving you pushback, get rid of her, because then she's already setting the stage up for the type of woman you're going to deal with later.
100%.
Read those cues. Like if she's going to be that difficult over where to eat, just get rid of her. Let her be somebody else's problem. Because that kind of inflexibility and that indecisiveness in a woman is also unattractive. And makes for a difficult life for a man. And a lot of conflict down the road. I would just say, read those cues there. It's a good sign. It's a good test.
Yeah.
Get rid of her.
Yeah, I would agree with that 100%. So one thing I did notice too is basically doing the same thing when you're first meeting women. I met every woman I've dated like on dating apps because I live in the middle of nowhere. So there's no cold approach out here, out here in cow country. So every gal that I dated out here is on a dating app. And I noticed that, I would banter back and forth, maybe like 10, 15 messages, find a segue to set a definite date. And I would always have a plan in mind. And I would say, when are you free? Great. Meet me at this place at this time on this day. Very concise. All they have to do is say yes. 90% of women are like, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
And
then, that would be refreshing.
Yeah. And then you would get maybe 5% that will shit test you on that a little bit and be like, oh, you're very pushy, and then just be like, I know what I want. Right.
Yeah.
And then you get the kind that would sit there and go, well, I don't like that place. Can we go to this place? And just then with those ones, I'm just like, no, we're going to this place. And if they give me crap, be like, okay, you know what? This isn't going to work out. Unmatch. It's just like,
yeah, I think it's a good test. Like that's a great way. People often ask me, one of the main questions I get is, how do I find a submissive woman? Right. And I'm like, the question just drives me a little crazy, because I really don't think that you go out looking for a submissive woman. I don't think you have a little checklist of all these things and you're just like, okay, this is good. But if there was one sign that I would say for men to look out for, if they want to see whether a woman would have the potential to be like more submissive, or if you want DS, dominance and submission in your life, which I highly recommend, is how agreeable she is to like things like you're saying.
Yeah.
And also if she does little acts of service for you. So if you have a woman that shows you that she offers to get you a drink, or she offers to, if your shoe's untied, if she offers to tie your shoe, or if she, offers to give you like a foot rub after a long day, or, stuff like this, or bake you cookies, right? These acts of service, I think, are really good signs right off the bat, whether a woman has the potential to be a good partner in life, because it shows that she wants to please. I don't know if did the nurse chick have any of that with you? It's usually
100%.
something.
Yeah, she's totally like that. I was when I first met her, I was training for marathon. I was getting ready to do a marathon. I was doing a whole bunch of races last year. And so I would on Saturdays or Sundays go out and run like 18 miles, come back, barely could walk. I could barely walk, and she would just be like, lay down and give me a full like head to toe massage and stuff. She's really great that way. I will say this though. So Dr. Robert Glover has a book called Dating Essentials for Men, and he talks about a lot of that stuff, right? Not necessarily in the context of dom and sub, but as far as men taking the lead. And he says a lot of these types of interactions with women are not only tests of interest, but a test of her ability to follow your lead. So when you tell her, he's like, don't ask her if she wants to meet you somewhere. Tell her, meet me at this place at this time. And when I started doing that, that's really when you start seeing a woman's ability to follow your lead. I don't know about like, that doesn't lead to the bedroom. But once you get to the bedroom, if you start telling her to do stuff like take off your clothes and get on the bed, and she does that, there you go.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of women secretly really want that. But they don't want to ask for that kind of, asking for it takes all the sexiness out.
Yep.
So when she feels like she has to ask for him to take the lead in the bedroom, that you're probably not going to get out of her, because that sort of energy ruins it right off the bat.
It's
but
like
a lot of women want that.
It's like women expect men to just get it.
Yeah.
Most men don't get it. And that's
no, I think, I think like men get it deep down. I do. Like, this is, I guess, where I'm kind of like, why I lean so masculine and I care. I'm very pro masculine. I think men really do get it, but I think society just like tells them they're wrong for those thoughts that they have. Like, if that were the case, I wouldn't have so many men, in DMs and over the years, just asking me how to find a submissive woman and how to introduce, kink dynamics into their bedroom and all of this. And I think that exists there because men instinctively know that they want that dynamic. They want that lead and they want to be able to do that, but they're told they're wrong for it or somehow perverted for it.
So if a guy asks me that, like, how do I introduce it? I would say, just do it. What would you say?
Yeah, I would say similar. Honestly, I think some of the most fun can be had outside of the bedroom first, so if you're wanting to introduce it into the bedroom, introduce it outside of the bedroom first. So tell her what to wear sometime when you're going to go on a date. Be specific about what color you want her to wear. If she's going to get her nails done, tell her what color you'd like to see on her nails. It can be very simple things like that. If you're going to be doing something sexual and you have, you love lingerie, maybe you tell her, if you're at that stage where you're like feeling comfortable giving her like a financial gift, right? And you're like, here's $40, go get something in the color pink to wear tonight, right? These sort of little ways of introducing that like lead into the relationship goes so far, because outside of the bedroom is where men kind of miss it. And women want to be primed all day long. Like, we love to be feeling connected to that energy all day long. But men miss that. And so a way to keep her engaged in that is by doing those little things outside of the bedroom. And then introducing it into the bedroom is not such a dramatic shift, because when you just start in the bedroom, her guard's up, right? She's not warmed up to it. It's just like foreplay. do some of that outside of the bedroom.
Yeah.
And then make the transition into the bedroom. But yeah, little things like that, like the nail polish color, you know, what to wear, like wear a dress tonight. I want it in black, whatever. Like these sorts of things are just so much fun to play with.
I like, one thing I would do with Nurse Chick, especially early on in the relationship, and I'll sprinkle it in occasionally now, is do a mystery date where I'm saying, hey, taking you out Saturday, wear your cute dress or whatever, and just not tell her what we're doing. And she's just like, what are we even doing? Now she knows that it's a mystery date, and she's just like, okay, like I'll trust you. But when the first time I did that with her, she's just like, oh, well, what, can I bring anything? Like what, trying to get a hint of what we're doing. I'm like, just don't worry about it.
Yeah.
I got it. And that drove her nuts just thinking about it leading up to it. It's like one of the biggest thing a guy could do, especially early on in a relationship, to really pique a woman's interest.
For sure. That would be awesome. Like if I were in the dating world, I would have really liked that. Mm-hmm. I think control is a big thing for women, right? They don't really want it, mm-hmm. but they feel like they have to have it in order to get their needs met. So mm-hmm. because they're used to being disappointed and used to people missing the cues, like used to men missing it, they just decide that they're either going to take control of everything and lead with that, again, that masculine energy, because that's where that starts coming out. And when they do that, they attract feminine men. So it just kind of keeps cycling, creates more of the same problem for them. Mm-hmm. And they think all men are shit, but in reality, they're just not allowing, like a man like you're describing, they won't give up that control mm-hmm. and kind of relax and see what that feels like. Let the excitement be there, like feel that it's okay.
Yeah.
I don't think they want to do that. They're afraid of it.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. Well, we're at an hour, actually a little over an hour. This has been a real fun conversation. I'm gonna have to have you back on. We could talk more about crocheted penises and stuff.
Yeah.
Where can people find you online?
I really only have my one social, which is on Twitter. So I'm @Taboo on Twitter. And then my website's traditionaltaboo.com.
All right. I'll put those in the description. Em, thank you very much. This was real fun. Yeah. I really like this. I got a lot out of this.
Yeah, me too. Thank you.
Em, thank you for joining me. You're welcome back anytime. People that have been listening to the show for a long time, they know that if I say that you're welcome back anytime, that actually enjoyed our conversation, and you are in fact welcome back anytime. If for whatever reason I'm just not down with my guest, I usually don't say that. I usually just say thanks for joining me or something like that. That's a little inside baseball. But seriously, fun conversation. It's always interesting to get women's take on the whole like dom sub type thing. Most women are totally into it at one level or another. Some women, they're maybe not into like being whipped and whatever, which is totally understandable. I wouldn't want that. I wouldn't like that either. But almost all women love their hair pulled. They love being dominated. They love being, held with their hands above their head, stuff like that. Even if you just do like that level, like I would say 99% of chicks are into that. More of the kinkier stuff, you might find a lesser percentage, but yeah, most chicks are totally into that sort of thing. And yeah, man, reach out to Em if you guys want more information on how that can help your relationship or whatever you're doing. Before I go, I want to give a shout out to the patreon.com/comeonmanpod. Like I said at the beginning of the show, coming in January, I'm consolidating everything down to 3 tiers. So if you want to get in with the current benefits and the current prices, sign up now, select the annual payment option, and you'll be locked into the current rates and the current options. Otherwise, in January, everything's going down to just 3 tiers. Tier 1 and 2, the prices are going up. Tier 3, the price is staying the same, but I'm only limiting calls to 1 call as opposed to 2 calls per month. So those are the changes there. Get in before those changes happen and select the annual option. And make sure you get on the email list and get your free stickers. You get all 3 of these stickers that are showing on the screen here. If you just go to list.comeonmanpod.com, sign up for the email list, I will send you stickers free of charge. Also, make sure that once you do sign up, that you periodically check your spam folder, because I've noticed that some people, they're not getting the messages for whatever reason. So check that out. I also have been going through the email list and manually sending an email from my personal email server just to make sure people are getting the messages, because some people just aren't. But if you sign up for the lists, just, hit me up on like Instagram or something. Just send me a DM and say, hey man, I signed up for your email list, but I haven't heard from you. Just feel free to do that too. And I'll make sure that you get your stickers come hell or high water. All right, guys. That's all I have this week. We'll catch you next week on Monday.
This has been the Come On Man podcast. New full episodes served hot every Monday morning on your favorite podcast platform of choice. So subscribe now. Follow Paul on social media. The links are in the description. Now, go out and get it.